All right, well, today's guest is on a mission to help Catholics integrate their faith with fitness and health. He's the author of The God of Endurance, which I have right here, a practical guide for incorporating exercise and nutrition into your spiritual journey. Joining us now is Chase Crouse.
Howdy, y'all. Good morning.
Good morning. All right, Chase, so tell us about your time serving with NET Ministries and how that eventually led to you pursuing a career in fitness.
Yeah, so I had my reversion when I was 19 and, dove into serving a couple years with NET Ministries of Canada. And that really put a fire in my belly to help people in a lot of different ways. Obviously, encounter Jesus Christ first and foremost, right? And it gave me the tools to be in front of people, to talk to people, to work with people, to journey with people from all walks of life, which is really, really, really cool. And so once I did my couple years with NET Ministries, the thing I realized though is that while I had a passion for the Lord and evangelization, I didn't know as much as I knew I needed to know. And a short story here is that when I was in training my second year, I was reading the Bible and I stumbled across one of the parables of Jesus. And I remember just having no idea what he was talking about. And I remember I was walking up to my other missionaries and the staff and be like, hey, do you know what this means? And everybody's like, like nobody could really articulate what they had some sort of opinions and things like that, but it was just not satisfying. So I ended up going to a school called John Paul the Great Catholic University, where I pursued my undergrad and eventually my master's in biblical theology, and ended up being in ministry full time for a number of years. And then it was when I was working for the Archdiocese of New York City that I actually started doing personal training, kind of just at first as a side gig to help pay the bills. My wife and I had just gotten married. We lived in New York, and I'm from Texas. She's from Arizona. And we were ignorant of the fact that, wow, New York's kind of expensive. And so at first I was training in a big box gym and, kind of moonlighting as a personal trainer just to help pay the bills. We were pregnant with our first. And I realized that, man, I loved working with people in this way. But I hated working in a secular gym environment. It was all about, how people looked, trying to be, look a certain way. Or from a management perspective, it was about like kind of tricking people into making sales and manipulating people into getting their money. And that didn't sit right. And so it forced me to ask the question of, why do I care about this? Like, why do I care and believe that people should be healthy, eat well, work out? Is it my inner Americana or is it my inner Catholic? And so I dove back into a text that I had studied formally in my undergrad and my master's, but it had been a bit since I'd read. And it was JP2's Theology of the Body. And I said to myself, basically, like, man, if there's an answer anywhere, it's got to be in here, right? And sure enough, Audience 15, paragraph 2, JP2 talks about this law of gift from Gaudium et Spes, namely that man finds himself through a sincere gift of self. But what he adds after that, which was my light bulb moment, was while that's true, you cannot give what you do not have. So self-gift is impossible without self-mastery. And so if the purpose of my life is to be like Jesus Christ in all things, that includes and necessitates his perfect gift of himself to the Father on the cross, which means I have to do the same. But I can't give what I don't have. So exercise, nutritional discipline, these are just tools of the modern day ascetic under this virtue of temperance, so that way I can conquer in order to give. So I can be the best husband, best father, the best man that I can possibly be. And so this was my light bulb moment back in 2019. And so since then, been a Catholic fitness evangelist, essentially, trying to help people to see that we're not doing this to have a six pack or just look a certain way or to fit into certain clothes. I mean, that's all fine and good, whatever. But ultimately, we're doing this to conquer ourselves in order to better and more fully give of ourselves.
So I'm actually a high school cross-country coach. I know,
cool.
Hard to believe. So I have to ask you this question. How important is it to have a community in fitness and people who work together, running together? Is that an important thing?
Yeah, I think one of the things I say to people all the time is ultimately your why should be a who and not a what. It's good to have these little goals of like certain pant size, weights, or trying to run a certain pace if you're running for an event, trying to be an athlete. Those are all really, really good things. But ultimately, those things are fickle and they're going to fade, or they're temporary at best, right? Ultimately, we need to have a who that we're doing this for. In almost an abstract way, we can say we're for Jesus, but ultimately, like for me as a husband and father, on the days I don't want to train, my wife is right here. My kids are right here. And I want to be able to get on the floor with my grandkids one day, God willing, right? So having a community of people helps you remember that we're ultimately doing this for the people around us in our lives, right? We're not just doing this for some arbitrary reason or some vain reason, but rather we're doing this to serve those that God has entrusted to us. Even if you're not married, then you have a community of people. You have people you're trying to serve and trying to live for, and that just helps with taking that next step and showing up day in and day out.
So tell us, if you could, Chase, about the book. When people read the book, what are they going to learn?
Yeah, so Dan and I, we've split it up into really 3 different sections. The first part of the book, we try to help people to understand that this is truly can fit into the Catholic spirituality, right? So we want people to understand that maybe that if they're already working out but never really thought about how this fits into the Catholic lifestyle, it's like it totally does. It's the tool of the modern day ascetic, right? But then we also didn't want to just leave it there as kind of a nice inspirational, like, yeah, this is the Catholic thing. We wanted to truly be practical too for those that maybe have never worked out before, or never really learned about nutrition without it being super academic, which I would like, but most people wouldn't. And so we also get into really some practical steps of like, okay, what's the first thing you do? Right? We said in the book, just move. Just move, do something, right? Something is always better than nothing. And then we talk a little bit about food, like what are some basic food things you can do? And then we try to put it all together at the end of the book. So truly, we wanted it to be a primer for those who either have never really taken exercise and nutrition seriously, or for those that do, but never thought about how it can fit into the Catholic lifestyle. And I think we've accomplished that as being a primer for those. And at the end of the book, we give tons of more resources for people that do want to dive deeper into these topics.
Yeah, the resource list is exhaustive and it's amazing. So Chase, thank you so much. We encourage people to head over to sophiainstitute.com if they want to check out the book. And God bless you and your work, Chase.
Thank you guys so much. God bless.